Well, welcome back to our next edition of What's Up America with Mike Kerr, as always, proudly broadcasting from Ocoee, Florida, USA, planet Earth. And my next guest is Bill Tiberio, who is a great musician and saxophonist and a great educator from Rochester, New York. And we're so blessed and honored to have Bill here today to tell us about his very fascinating story and what he's all up to now. And like they mentioned, Bill, you're an educator, you're a musician, you're a performer, your instrument is a saxophone. But can you tell us about your story, about your musical journey and all the things that you do then?
Thanks for having me, Mike. Thanks for contacting me about this show that you put together. I'm really honored. Yes, I am 30. I'm just finishing tomorrow. We actually have graduation tomorrow. My 37th year as a public high school band director. We actually have an outdoor graduation this year, if it doesn't rain. And if it does rain, we move it a day. And it's been a very strange year for education, as everybody knows, because restrictions and safety protocols have kept us pretty far from each other as we've tried to play. But I'm a high school band director, and love teaching, and I'm nowhere near retirement. I also teach music at 3 area colleges. I'm at the University of Rochester River campus. That is a school that's associated with the Eastman School of Music. And through the Eastman School of Music, I direct a couple of ensembles there for educators, an educators wind ensemble and an educators jazz ensemble. Those ensembles are just starting to meet again after a pretty long hiatus due to COVID. And I'm doing the jazz bands at SUNY Geneseo. And one night a week, I join the jazz department down at Ithaca College, which is a couple hours from Rochester. So I'm a very active educator. It's what I love to do. And being a performer ties in pretty naturally for me. I was a clarinet major at Ithaca College many years ago. And I grew up in the community that I still teach in, Fairport, New York, which is a suburb of Rochester. I was a clarinet student there and started the saxophone toward the end of my high school career because I wanted to be in the jazz band. And I've continued to play both instruments, but primarily saxophone professionally since college. I feel really blessed. I feel very fortunate. My friends are so many of my social contacts in the world are musicians and fellow educators and students. And I feel like I have been so lucky to find a profession that is actually not what I do for a living, but what I do to live, which is to teach and to play.
Oh, so you were mentioning, Bill, that your main instrument of choice is then the saxophone, but you also mentioned that you can play the clarinet, but usually you just do that like for the family or something? Or?
Well, there aren't as many gigs for clarinet players. I have occasional opportunities to play clarinet in classical settings. I use the clarinet almost all the time for teaching lessons. So I love that instrument, but my own band, which has recorded, and groups that I play with in the Rochester area in jazz and pop and cover bands and Latin bands, tends to be the saxophone. It's the saxophone primarily. So I love the saxophone and have made that my professional playing career, but I still love playing the clarinet too. It's a beautiful instrument.
And with the saxophone, Bill, do you play? I understand there's like tenor and alto and baritone. I mean, do you play all the different saxophones?
I am primarily an alto and tenor player. I don't own a soprano, but I love that instrument, and I have access to a school-owned soprano that I borrowed. The bari sax is a beast, and I have played that instrument, especially in a larger ensemble or as part of a Latin horn section, or if there's a 4 or 5 piece horn section. I've occasionally played the bari sax there. Again, I don't own the bari. The fingering tables are the same from soprano through the bari, but the embouchures and sizes, of course, are different. and I prefer playing the two instruments that I own, which are alto and tenor. And when I'm playing tenor, I love playing tenor. When I'm playing alto, I love playing alto.
So, I mean, for you in these recordings, sometimes you play multiple saxophones or multiple parts on
Yeah,
recordings.
yeah. The beauty of technology is that you can play with yourself and record yourself. Um, and so there are times where we've wanted for some of our recordings with my own group, the Bill Tiberio Band, we've wanted kind of a section sound or some harmonized saxophone parts. One of our other band members plays trumpet and keyboard, and so believe it or not, he can play them simultaneously. And it's kind of it's not just a party trick. It really is something that he can do well. But we have had times where we've multi-tracked recordings, and I've had a tenor part or two tenor parts and an alto part or two alto parts or multiple layers to create almost a section sound or harmonizing. And it's a lot of fun, as well as there's the challenge of playing with yourself and interpreting the music exactly the same way that you already recorded it. So that kind of is a unique challenge too. It's not the same, of course, as playing live with a full section and having multiple players and personalities that you've rehearsed with, but it's a fun thing to do for recordings.
And for you, Bill, do you actually write these saxophone parts yourself, or?
The interesting thing about the Bill Tiberio Band, we've recorded 4 CDs now. Almost all of the music has been written by one of the members of our group, Scott Bradley, who's the keyboard player and trumpet player. We've got more and more compositions written recently by our bassist, Jeff Smith, and we're working currently on a wonderful composition by our drummer, Phil Lake. I have not actually written any of the music that we've played with my own band. I've contributed to the arrangements and to the parts and to the interpretations, as we all have. And we tend to take a piece that's brought to a rehearsal, and it morphs and adapts to our different personalities, and we end up changing it right on the spot and over a period of time. That's the beauty of a group of collaborative musicians, is you can take a piece and change it and adapt it and hopefully make personal contributions to it. And that's kind of the style by which we have produced music. Is the idea is brought, and then it's kind of fleshed out amongst the 5 musicians we have in that band.
And in the high schools where you teach, Bill, do you bring any of your original music or any ideas or any compositions to there?
I think that playing with and for my students has been something that's always really connected me musically to them, and given me credibility with the musicians in my classrooms. And specifically, yes, Mike, I had a few years ago, I had Scott write a large ensemble arrangement, a big band arrangement of the title track of our 3rd CD, a tune called Joy. It's a tune that's particularly meaningful for me because it's dedicated to not just the feeling we have of having our band and of playing together, kind of an attitude about that, but also it was my mom's name. And Scott knew my mother really well, and we decided at some point this tune has to represent both her and this feeling of joyfulness that we have about being able to play music together. And I asked him to arrange that for my high school jazz ensemble. And he created an amazing and incredible arrangement of that. And then I brought him in to work with the students on it. And we've played that 3 years in a row now because it's become such a favorite of the students. In fact, tomorrow at our high school graduation, we'll play it on a baseball stadium, just as a celebration of completing the senior year. So that was a unique and fun way for me to bring my professional group into my classroom and directly with a piece that the kids have maybe heard on recording and then got a chance to play their own version of it.
Oh, okay. So now, Bill, I'd like to talk about, these songs our audience will be listening to, at least for the audio version of this. And I'll explain a little bit about these songs that you had sent me one. And
Yeah.
then you had said to go through the music, which it was fun to do, and
Okay.
pick the other
Thanks for
two.
doing
So
that.
these other two are my picks, but let's
Okay.
talk about the one that you sent here, and it's called "I Love You Anyway." Can you tell us about this one?
Yeah. Scott brought this ballad. It wasn't even written on a computer program. He penciled it out, and he brought a ballad to a rehearsal. It didn't have a title at the time, and it was just a beautiful tune that we connected to as a group right away. And it's pretty simple in its structure and doesn't have a lot of, maybe very little improvisation, but it's just a beautiful tune. And we were rehearsing it just almost offhandedly, and we decided we need to learn this tune, really get comfortable with it, and then have that be part of this live record, which we did, which was shortly before the pandemic. We recorded a live recording. And so Scott, had thought about what possible titles were, and he had a specific kind of image in his head, and it definitely is a love song or a song about a positive connection with other people. And we decided, like, on the spot, this has to be a tune that we record. And the first few times we played it, we just connected on it. We didn't have to change it very much. We didn't add a lot of arrangement or anything fancy to it. We just decided that the simplicity of it really spoke to it. So that's how it came together.
Okay. And now the next song we have here is Roberto Clemente. Can you tell us about this one?
That is such a great question, Mike, because I'm gonna show my ignorance here. I'm not very athletically inclined, and I actually did not know the name Roberto Clemente, and that was, my band members were aghast at that, because I read about him now, and I have learned what an amazing and influential baseball player he was, and one of Scott's favorite heroes in the baseball world was Roberto Clemente, and he knew his story and had followed him as a kid. And he wrote a Latin composition that was so much fun to play, called Roberto Clemente. And we used to joke that this isn't exactly true, but I thought maybe Roberto Clemente was a famous Latin jazz percussionist, and that was never, of course, the case. Perhaps he was too, but we put that tune together simply because we all love Latin music, and we try really hard to recreate it in an authentic way, and had a blast playing and recording that tune. That one goes back a few years for us, and actually had that song requested by a friend one time, so we relearned it for a concert we did in the last year. So much fun to play that kind of music.
Oh, okay. And now another song we have here is Louis. Can you tell us about this one?
Okay, so Louis is on our I think it's on Joy. Yeah. That is kind of that is a song that had several different titles. I wish I could remember other ones, but it's kind of on the gospel rock feel, almost Jimi Hendrix style, chords in the guitar, and it's almost always one we've used as kind of a show ender, something that has a real building, fun section where we can do a lot of pretty active improvisation on it, and feature Vinny Ruggiero, our guitarist, whom I didn't mention yet. And he can play these blistering blues and rock solos over that style, and that has become kind of not an anthem for the band, but something that's really fun for us to conclude shows with. It's one we've really enjoyed playing. And yeah, it may have, as with many of the tunes, it may have had a different title at first, but somehow it came down to that.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we're talking about different albums. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about the albums you've recorded?
Okay. We've done 4, and the first and the fourth were both recorded live. The first one is called Brothers, and we did that about 12 or 13 years ago now. And Brothers is actually one of it's the title track that Scott had written. We recorded that live at Finger Lakes Community College, and that's a community school in the Canandaigua, New York area that has a recording department, a recording major. And some students who were working on projects helped us with that recording. And Jeff Smith, our bassist, is also an instructor in that program. He's a professor of recording technology there. So he was our connection to that space, and we invited a live audience of about 70 or so, and did about 10 tunes. And we did some covers for that one too. We covered one of my very, very favorite David Sanborn compositions called Solo, which is off of a record called I can't remember exactly what it might be called Heart to Heart, but the album came out. I remember it specifically the year I graduated from high school in 1980, and it had such a profound influence on me. I absolutely loved this song. We recorded that. We recorded a Pat Metheny cover. We recovered a Pat Metheny tune called Travels, which is a beautiful composition, and it has a real kind of a moving imagery that brings travel into everyone's minds as we play it. So that was our first record, and our second one was called Thanksgiving. There's a title track for that one, and we did that in the studio, parts, individual parts at a time, also at Finger Lakes Community College, but we did that over a period of months. And we followed that. Our third record is called Joy. Joy is the title track of our third record. And if you were to find us on Spotify, I think that might be our most listened to composition. It's the one that, that if people have a request at all for a song, that's one that people remember. And then the fourth record is the live 2020 live that we did in January of 2020. And we went back to FLCC, Finger Lakes Community College, and invited an audience of about 50 people and recorded the compositions right in front of them with very little editing after it. So there's a theme, Brothers, Thanksgiving, Joy, live. There's a theme of real sense of gratitude that we have about playing together. This band has been together all those years. And we feel like we're in a place of continued growth where we have a lot of new music. We're anxious to get out and play and record again real soon. We didn't know what to do with the 2020 live record because during the pandemic, there were no opportunities to get out and promote the record. So we kind of held on to it for a while and decided, at some point we said, well, let's release it. So we released it during a time when there wasn't any live performances going on. And we're kind of right now where the things are opening up. We're playing outdoors and in other venues this summer and this fall. And we're letting that material have some space in the live settings. But we have new stuff that we want to get at pretty quickly. One of the things we did do during the pandemic is we released 3 virtual videos of songs we haven't recorded yet. And we did those separately in our own spaces or homes. And Vinny did the audio editing, engineering, and Jeff Smith did Vinny did the video work, and Jeff Smith did the audio work. And we put together 3 virtual videos. So if listeners were to go to YouTube under Bill Tiberio Band, they would find 3 different titles of songs that are not songs we've recorded yet on CDs that we did during the last 8 or 10 months.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, Bill, you have a lot of songs that are in the works that you're working on. I mean, during the pandemic, it was a time. I mean, could the you guys get together at least in person?
Yeah, we for months, of course, when everybody was in a very rough spot quarantining, we were Zooming quite a bit and staying connected and discussing plans. And then at some point, we just decided we're going to start rehearsing. We did. We used my high school band room. We spread way out. We started rehearsing. We kept wanting to learn new music. And so in the winter time here, when things were still very, very quiet in terms of any live performing, or even any live gatherings for restaurants or clubs or anything like that. We did get together, and we kept our masks on. We were far apart, but we learned a lot of new music that way, and now things are so much better for all of us post vaccination, and COVID numbers have been so low, thankfully. We've been able to get out and play. So yeah, we did keep going. There were some dark months there where we didn't play together at all, and that was hard for all of us, for all musicians across the world who weren't playing with other musicians. That was a really hard time, very challenging.
And Bill, I like my holiday shows, and I'm not too sure about this year, but I mean, do you usually do a holiday type theme or Christmas theme show?
We have been part of holiday Christmas events, and we actually are pretty. We enjoy pulling out tunes that are Christmas songs that can be arranged for a jazz ensemble. We've done quite a few of those, in fact, and we've not created anything earth-shatteringly new with those tunes, but we've really enjoyed playing them. So we will participate in holiday concerts. We've been part of that. The Christmas song is one of my favorites to play as a quintet, as a jazz quintet. Green Sleeves, What Child Is This, is another really beautiful tune to play as a jazz group. So we have done that, and we're hopeful to do some holiday shows this coming year for sure.
Okay, and you mentioned you're a jazz group, but I just want to let you know, Bill, that you're probably one of the most versatile jazz groups I've seen. You combine so many different genres. I mean, the bass is jazz, but there's rock, there's gospel, there's just a little bit of everything. So I mean, was that kind of your intent to just not be limited by, you've got to do smooth jazz or something?
Yeah, I'm not real interested in the labels of music, and jazz for me is a huge umbrella, Mike. It has a huge wide scope of different musical influence. This year, we have all been drawn very strongly toward the roots of jazz, African American music, Black writers, and so we've all of us who teach and have been involved with jazz have looked at kind of where jazz has come from, and studied some of the masters, and re-listened to some of the origins of jazz. That I really don't consider myself an authentic jazz player, if you call jazz by the straight ahead definition. I really enjoy playing jazz that's influenced by funk music and pop and rock and Latin. I love playing gospel music, and I'm part of a gospel choir at Spiritus Christi in Rochester, New York, and I love that music. So I don't really consider myself a straight ahead jazz player. It's an art that I hope to continue to always learn about and continue to practice. But there are so many musicians whose lives are dedicated to that really authentic, straight ahead jazz world, and I'm so inspired by them, including some of my own students who have taken straight ahead music, classic jazz, and continue to play it in a modern way, or even in an avant-garde way. I love and respect that music, but I also am influenced greatly by rock music and pop music and all other influences. And so I am probably most comfortable playing music that is jazz related and jazz inspired. The term smooth jazz has somewhat of a negative connotation in certain circles in the professional music world, because it can be associated with music that's not worth listening to, but maybe as background music. And I hope to never create anything that's not worth listening to, but hopefully that it's always based in integrity and in real playing and real soulfulness. I would describe our band as a contemporary jazz group, and maybe that's a cop out because it isn't very descriptive, but it does mean that we are multiply influenced by a lot of different music.
Oh, okay. And so as a sax player, there's a lot of solos, and I'm wondering, I mean, is this something that you just come up with, off the top of your head? I mean, do you play the same solos over and over again, or?
Oh, hopefully, Mike, that's a great question. With recorded music and with all of our live shows, we are all hoping to do something when we're soloing that's very spontaneous, that happens only in that moment. You do, of course, find yourself in certain musical moments that you have heard before and that you use certain ideas, but we are always trying to be innovative in how we approach every composition, even the ones that are recorded are hopefully recorded with a live and spontaneous improvised solo at that time. And that's something that's really important to all of us, is being really creative and trying different things every time, but not recreating the same solos.
Okay, so yeah, that's interesting. And so we want to talk a little bit, Bill. We kind of mentioned, YouTube and some of that, and we want to talk about a little bit about your social media. And I mean, so for you, do you have a website or?
Um, we have the best way to see us or know where we're going is we're on Facebook under Bill Tiberio Band, and I recently opened an Instagram Bill Tiberio Band account, so people can find us there. I had a website that lapsed, and then it got bought by the name got bought by a company that isn't music, and so I'm waiting that out. I don't currently have an active website, so the two means to find us are Bill Tiberio Band on Instagram and Facebook.
Oh, and you mentioned that you have something on YouTube. I mean, there is a channel because I've
Yeah,
seen it.
and I have my own channel on YouTube under my name, Bill Tiberio. And if you were to Google, if listeners Google Bill Tiberio Band YouTube, of those three videos that I mentioned would come up, as well as some other videos of live performances would show up there too.
Oh, okay. So now I want to talk about, if our audience like to purchase the music. I mean, you're probably on a lot of streaming sites. Do you have actual
Yeah,
physical CDs still,
yes,
or?
we have CDs available through CD Baby, and we also are on Spotify and Apple Music and all the platforms. Yeah, I'm always happy to. Some people like having the actual CD. Most young people just have forgotten what those are like, and they listen to all their music on streaming platforms and on MP3s. There isn't really anything like playing hearing a real CD on real speakers or really good headphones in terms of audio quality. So I'm always happy, and CD Baby has hard copies of our CDs, and it can easily be found on the internet.
So we mentioned, Bill, that you're an educator. You teach high school students and also college students. But what I'm wondering is, in the college, is there older students? I mean, is there a certain age that's easier to teach, or is everyone teachable when it comes to music?
I think everyone's teachable when it comes to music. That's a great way to put it. And I've worked with students as young as 8 and 10, and I've worked with people in their 70s and 80s in different situations. And I think everybody wants a connection with art of some kind, and people that are drawn to music. I think sometimes older students are hungrier to learn because they have been through so many different experiences in their life, and they've kind of figured out what it is that really connects to them. But young kids are so hilarious, and they're such open books, and they're so much fun to teach. So I'm very fortunate. I get to teach high school students and college kids, and some of the college kids are graduate students and older. And I invite adults in, and I work with groups of teachers, of educators of all ages, including some retirees that are older than I. And I feel like everybody has something to learn and to teach. As a teacher, I keep learning. That's the thing that I hope to keep myself going, is I keep learning from the different ages, at all ages that I work with.
Okay, Bill, and before we go, is there any public concerts or any places, that you could be seeing in the future? You have anything booked like coming up soon or?
Yes, in the Rochester area, if any of listeners are seeing this elsewhere, and if this is a program that I can broadcast on any of the media, I'll do so. We have several events coming on July 7th. We're playing at the Penthouse, which is a 10th floor Rochester downtown venue that has a great view of the city. On the 11th, we're playing a concert out in Gates on the west side of Rochester, an outdoor concert at the Gates Recreation Facility. And then on the 15th of July, we're playing a concert in Victor near Canandaigua, New York. And that's an outdoor park concert. So there's 3 events coming up just in the next couple of weeks. And we're part of a big downtown Rochester event on August 14th that's bringing in R&B artists and hip hop artists and jazz artists. And we're the last group, we're the final group on an event at Martin Luther King Park on August 14th, which is a big event coming up in the city of Rochester. So we have a lot coming up. We're grateful for that, really grateful.
Okay, Bill, we really appreciate your talent, your time and your talent, and we're so glad that you're going to be teaching for a few more years, and
Sure.
we
I hope so.
we appreciate that. Any final thoughts or anything else you'd like our audience to take away from all of this?
Just thank you to you, Mike, for promoting music in your part of the world, and taking time to meet artists. This is how we've met for the first time, is through this Zoom call. So thank you for reaching out. And I guess my only last thought is that I am so grateful that people have listened to our music and find some meaning with it and connection. And I hope that we can continue to connect. And so if you've heard music that you like, send us a note. Tell us what speaks to you. Come to concerts and keep supporting live music wherever you are. We're coming out of the really dark time, and we need people to come and hear musicians. So that's my final thought. Come and find live music and support classical music. That is going to be something we're worried about getting back to, and having audiences come back to, and find your orchestras closest to you and support classical musicians, as well as jazz and all genres. So thank you so much, Mike, for having me.
Okay, it's been my pleasure. My guest has been Bill Tiberio, and you've been listening to What's Up America with Mike Cara. As always, proudly broadcasting from Ocoee, Florida, USA, planet Earth. And please catch us again next time.